Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea. This is episode 435, and I am Laura, also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarn and patterns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, August 7th, and it is sunny, but it is actually a little bit cooler here. It's only in the low 80s today. I know that sounds terrible, but it actually has, it's just a little bit cooler. It's fooling us that maybe fall is on the way. We won't see fall for quite a while, but it is a little bit nicer to not have it be quite so much of an oven outside. So how are you? I had a really relaxing weekend. We didn't do a ton. We watched a bunch of movies. We rented some movies on Amazon Prime and saw some things that we had missed in the theater along the way, and we exercised a little, and then I crafted a lot. I don't have a ton of progress well, I have some different things to show you this week. I've been spending a lot of time working on chickens for the last couple weeks, and so I don't have as much in my other projects, but I do have a little bit to show you. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I have a little bit of spinning to show you, and I've picked out my next braid, and we've got some tea. So I'm back to tea today. Today I am drinking something called Back Porch Blend, and it was from the Amish Country Store, which we stopped in, well, technically this is from the first time my husband stopped, so in June, right as you get into Iowa from Missouri. At exit 4, there is a sort of welcome to Iowa. I might have said Illinois. I meant Iowa. You get to the Iowa Welcome Center, and the Iowa Welcome Center also has an Amish country store, and so they've got all kinds of wonderful treats, jams and jellies and teas and snacks and furniture and baskets and all kinds of other things. But we went ahead and actually I'm just going to fix this right now because I'm noticing there's some tea above where I closed the bag. Sorry for the rustling, but I don't want it to get everywhere. Anyway, my husband brought me back some tea, and this is Back Porch Tea, which sounds perfect for summer. It's black tea, orange peel, strawberry, blackberry leaves, and flavor, and I can definitely smell the berries. And so I have brewed that up in the Bean Cup, which is a very local to me coffee shop. It is not a chain. It's just this tiny coffee shop in this little, one road old Main Street town. There's Pop's Pop's Sweet Shop across the way, which has, ice cream and, toffee and all kinds of other things. Anyway, so this is Back Porch. And that is delicious. That'll be a good pick-me-up for this afternoon. So I hope that you are doing well. Like I said, I did a lot of crafting, so let's jump in so I can show you. We'll start with the thing that I was working on already, and that is I'm working on a shawl sample for Zen Yard Garden for a pattern that has yet to be released. And the pattern is making use of the Zen Yarn Garden double-stranded cakes. These are dyed as sock blanks, and they are double-stranded, so technically you can make two halves that that look roughly the same. This is not the best example because they were not dyed exactly the same, and so what I'm finding is that I have lots of areas that are a mismatch, but you can see how they were sort of dyed together and then wound together, and as I pull them out, they sort of come out together, but they do have some spots where the colors are completely different. So I am knitting two halves of a shawl from the shawl cake, or from this particular cake, and then I'm going to be joining them in the middle with a kind of a special join, and that is one of the secrets of the pattern. So the pattern will be available. I'm knitting through it now just to make sure that it works and to knit a sample, and then the pattern will be available as will the yarn. So I have been working on this for a few weeks and I haven't made a ton of progress, but I'm getting closer now. The rows are getting longer and longer. As you can see, we've got kind of a yarn over border on one side where we are increasing, and then the other side is just kind of a little bit of a garter stitch edging. It will lay flatter once I block it. And so I am knitting the two halves, and when done, I will put the two halves together like such. in the middle, and you will end up with kind of a longer, skinnier scarf. It will have decent depth at that point. My guess is I'm probably about halfway done in the yarn, so I still have a little ways to go. But then what will happen is we'll just join this seam together, and so you will have the yarn over edge along the top, and then the other kind of garter stitch edging at the bottom. So it's kind of an interesting little pattern. You can see when I hold these up next to each other that they are not exactly the same. They are all the same colors, but they were just not dyed exactly the same. So at this point, this one early on, there was a lot more white in this one, and then we've got a bunch of yellow, and then early on there was more yellow in this one, and then right now I'm getting kind of some blue pooling. So they're not exactly the same, even though they are exactly the same number of stitches. So I'll just keep going, and you basically work across both pieces at one time. You just use 2 strands, so a little bit like knitting 2 socks at the same time, or working on 2 sleeves at the same time. So I'm just winding through each of these and kind of unwinding from the cake as I go, and then eventually, like I said, we'll just join the pieces together and we'll have a shawl. So it's an interesting way to construct a shawl, and I'm really curious to see what it ultimately will look like. I really love the colors, and even though there is clearly some pooling at certain points, I think it's going to be a really kind of fun shawl, even if it's not exactly 100% identical. So definitely all the same colors, and it's just kind of a fun color mix. So that is what I'm working on right now, and I will continue working on this. My hope is that I will have it done in the next couple weeks, definitely by the end of the month, and get that ready to go so we can do that as a fall project. And there will be, like I said, the pattern will be available, and there will be kits, and the pattern was designed sort of by a combination of Roxanne Yoon and using a technique that Suzanne Nielsen designed, and so the pattern will not be 100% free. It probably will be a nominal charge, because there is a technique in it that we sort of want to keep not proprietary, but that we're not going to give away for free. So they're not going to give away for free, I should say. I am a contract knitter. I do not, they pay me to knit samples, but I do not make anything in particular from any purchases that you make. We just hope you enjoy them, and they continue to pay me to knit samples that they hope people will enjoy to, will want to buy kits for. So that is sort of the way that works. So the second project that I'm working on is, and I talked about this for a couple weeks and hadn't started it, but now I have. I started on Miles' sweater. I am knitting Hearthstone, which is a pattern by Isolde Teague, and it is graded over a huge number of sizes. It can be knit basically from newborn all the way up to adult, and I don't remember whether it's 4 or 5X or precisely what the top end is, but her patterns are generously graded over a wide variety of sizes. The pattern is basically it's a raglan pullover, and the details, so I'm taping on my phone, so I can't show you the pattern on my phone. Like I said, it's called Hearthstone. I will have a link in the show notes, and the link will go to Isolde's website, not Ravelry, so you can check it out there. Basically, it is a fairly simple raglan pullover, and then the raglan detailing has cables, and then it's got like a really nice neck cable up at the top. So it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit like mock turtleneck-ish, because there is sort of a section here that has cabling, and then, like I said, it's got some nice details. So I finally downloaded and read the pattern. I had picked it several weeks ago, and the pattern, it turns out, is knit in the round from the bottom up. Which means there's a lot of boring knitting kind of at the bottom, because all the detailing is up here in the yoke. And so basically what it is you knit the sleeves in the round from the cuff up, and then you knit the body in the round from the hem up. And I'm not giving away that much of the pattern there. I'm not giving you any details about that. But I went ahead and cast on this week, and I finished my first sleeve. So this is my sleeve. Like I said, I started in the round at the cuff, and then I knit up following the instructions for my size. And now I have a few stitches on hold. This is where I will graft at the underarms when I'm done, and then I have the rest of the armhole stitches on these. These are the Knitting Barber, and actually I have it right here. It's called the Knitting Barber, and these are silicone cables that you can attach to the end of your needle and then kind of pull through your stitches so that you can so that you don't have to use waste yarn. And the benefit is that then you can attach it back to your needle and basically pull your needle through when you're ready to put these stitches back on back on your needle. Obviously, these are not a necessity, but I have been finding them a time saver rather than just using like waste yarn and a tapestry needle to run it through and then try and pick up all those stitches on the needle. So I really like these. These are from the Knitting Barber, and they come in a variety of colors. Mine are in fuchsia, and each kit includes 2 shorter ones and 1 longer one, basically for sleeves and like body. And these also can be used sort of more or less as try-it-on tubing if you want. For instance, if you want to try a sweater on as you're working it from top, that won't work because this is a bottom up, but if you want to try it on from top down, you can always, you know, after you split for the sleeves, you could put the sleeves on holders, and then you could also put the body on holders and then try it on. The body holder is 60 inches and the 2 sleeve holders are 30 inches. So obviously if you are making a size that is wider than 60 inches around, you would need another set of cables, but for most of us, these will work for that. So like I said, the Knitting Barber, and you can get those online. They're, I want to say they were about $12.95, $15.95, something like that. So this is being knit in, that's a great version of the color. This is being knit in Malabrigo Rios in Cereza, which is Spanish for cherry. So I think of it almost like dark cherry, and you can see there's a little bit of variation. It is a tonal colorway that is kettle dyed, and I am alternating skeins, but I don't think you can tell because there's just so much variation. I don't think you can actually tell. I'm doing one by one round, so like any areas where you see like 2 or 4 rows that you think look kind of alike, I'm not doing 2 by 2 rows. So yeah. So that's what I'm doing. I will need to cast on and hopefully finish another sleeve this week. I did this one in about 2 to 3 nights work since it's not huge. I am making the size 6 to 8 because Miles will be 7 this fall. So that's the size that I'm knitting for him. And then I'm a little short on yardage and I'm sort of getting almost exact gauge on this. I used my sleeve, my swatch. So, because I've knit a bunch of sweaters with Rios recently, I was hoping that I would be getting slightly off on row gauge because I have a little bit less than it takes to complete this pattern. I don't know if I looked at the wrong size or whatever, but I didn't order enough. So I may leave an inch or so out of the body. I can't decide yet. I'll have to see what it looks like when I actually get it going. But so my first sleeve is done, and like I said, hopefully second sleeve today, and then I'll work on the body. And then the really fun part will kind of be the fourth quarter, as it were. I don't know why I'm making football references. I don't like football, but the fourth quarter will be all the raglan shaping and all the cables, which of course is the fun and interesting part. So I'm looking forward to that. So the reason I haven't had a ton on my needles is actually because I'm working on 2 separate chickens, but one of the chickens that I'm working on actually takes quite a bit of effort, and I wanted to show you what I'm doing. So okay, I'll go into a brief background for those of you who haven't been with me before. I work with a local artisan here in Kansas City. It's actually a whole shop, and it's called the City Girl Farm, and you can find them at thecitygirlfarm.com. And they sell, they are the home of the original chicken footstool. And the chicken footstool is basically an upholstered, like chicken creation, sort of meant to be used as a footstool, but these are really works of art, so I don't know that a lot of people use them functionally as footstools. Inside, they are made of wood and brass, and then we, I say we, but these are not the parts that I do. Then we sort of create bodies for them by sewing some fabric and stuffing them with padding, and then on the outside, we decorate the chickens, and this is the part that I do get in on, with knitting, spinning, felting, all kinds of fiber arts on top. There's a little bit of weaving, but mostly spinning, hand-spun yarn knit into various fabrics, and wool felted onto the chickens. So you can check them out, like I said, at thecitygirlfarm.com. If you look under either chickens waiting to be adopted or chickens that have been adopted, you'll be able to see all the different kinds of things we do. Some of them look kind of close to real chickens, are definitely inspired by real chickens. Some of them are just fanciful and all kinds of crazy colors. One of the chickens that we have sort of, that I should say they have sort of pioneered, but they have become sort of my chickens because they take kind of a bit of effort to knit them, and so I'm the only one who really does them now. is we call them royal chickens, and the royal chickens are pinstripe chickens. And so what we create are all these feathers from pinstripes. And so these are strips. We knit them into strips, and then we create all the individual little feathers. They're almost like knitting fingers on gloves, or, you know, knitting little bits and pieces to sort of protrude. And then we knit a bunch of different strips and stack them together, and then they get sewn together, and then eventually they get washed and blocked. So this will be a little bit less curly, and then they will be placed on the chickens sort of structurally to look like feathers. And so what we are going for here is, so I spin the yarn for these, which I should say is kind of difficult for me because generally I don't spin to finish with singles, and I also don't spin thick yarns. So that has been a learning process for me on how to spin thicker yarns and not over twist them by too much. I do still over twist quite a bit, but it's pretty forgiving. The other thing is, and I don't know how much I've talked about this before, when we knit for ourselves, like we're knitting scarves or sweaters or hats, we want the fabric to be really nice and drapey. We might want it to be thick because we want it to be warm, but we also want it to be nice and drapey. We want it to mold to our shape. We want it to, you know, hug our curves, or you know, sit nicely on our bodies. And so we don't want the fabric to be super stiff. In the process of making chickens, we actually want the fabric to be a little bit stiff and a little bit more upholstered, because these items are going to be art pieces and function more like upholstery. Like, we don't want them to wear, we don't want, for instance, like some folks have pets, you don't want your pet to rub up against it and for it to get like super fuzzy or pilly. If you are actually using it as a footstool, which I suppose maybe a few people do, you don't want to get a lot of wear and tear on it. So I spend a lot of time kind of felting, or not felting, finishing my singles. Why am I fulling my singles? There we go. I spend a lot of time doing exactly the thing that you usually don't want to do to yarn, which is, for instance, when I spin this yarn, then I actually agitate it and I put it in hot and cold water alternately very quickly, because I actually want to kind of full and make these singles a little bit felted, because again, it creates more of a structural fabric. So these are what I have been working on the last couple weeks, and they take lots of time. They're very time intensive to knit all these little bits and weave in all the ends and sew them together, and they produce an absolutely amazing looking chicken. There are quite a few examples in the adopted chickens at the City Girl Farm. This is also coincidentally what I'm doing for my chicken. I'm using my hand spun singles and then some kind of a neutral yarn that I have, and I'm putting them together for my chicken, although my chicken has definitely taken a back seat to a lot of things. So I'm working on a black and white one right now, kind of a classic one. We've done a variety of colors. I think my favorite one was I did a red and white one, and it was just absolutely adorable. It almost looked not quite like gingham, but yeah. So that's what I do a little bit in my, quote, free time. It is, I do work for them. I get paid for my efforts, and it's very different from everything else I do normally when I knit samples. I'm knitting garment samples. I want them to fit nicely. I want them to drape nicely. I need to actually adhere to a pattern and a specific gauge, and these are kind of a little bit more freeform, so it's kind of interesting and fun for me. It's just a little something different that I do. So that is what I have been working on. So let's talk about spins. I really don't have that much to show you. I did finish spinning the singles for my Barbie yarn, and I actually started to ply, and it's right here, so I'm going to show you. These are, the fiber was dyed by Kim Dye's Yarn. They are BFL and silk, and I want to say, I think it's a 70-30, BFL and Tussa silk, and the colorway was called Indie Dyer Barbie. Of course, it was, you know, set up to coincide or inspired by the Barbie film, and my hope is that I'm going to get enough out of this to do some sort of a hand-spun top. And actually, I just realized the other night, you know, sometimes So a lot of people talk about how the best solutions come to them, you know, when they're doing certain things. The two ways that my solutions for knitting issues, like if I'm having an issue with something or I'm trying to brainstorm or think about something, the two places that I come up with my best ideas are one, under a hot shower, and two, actually, sometimes when I'm sleeping. I know it's really weird, but I've been trying to figure out what I want to make with this yarn. And one of the things that I would really, really like to make is a design by Shayna Lines, who is Shayna B Knits, maybe? She's Shayna Lines on Instagram. And it is called... I'm going to be a bad podcaster and I can't remember, but it is knit kind of in chunks and in opposing directions. And it's a really cool, it was set up as a tee to be knit in fingering weight. I think I might try and make mine a full sweater, because as long as I'm going to go ahead and make a sweater, I feel like recalibrate. That is the pattern, recalibrate. And I wanted to use some handspun for it, and then I wanted to use another color, and I hadn't decided whether I wanted it to be handspun or whether I wanted it to be commercial yarn. And I was going through my mind of all my handspuns, and I had a variety of things I was kind of working through in my mind. And then the other night I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, I have this yarn. I didn't know what to use it for. It is like screaming neon pink, and I think it's going to go great with this handspun. So I haven't pulled it out yet. I need to go digging through my stash, all these bins behind me, and find out where it is, and I will show you next week, because next week my Barbie spin will be done. But I started playing my Barbie yarn yesterday. So this is what I have so far. So this is my Hanson e-spinner. It's in cherry. And I've had it for quite a while now, and this is what I'm working on. So this is Indie Dyer Barbie. There's lots and lots of pink, of course. There's a little bit of yellow and kind of peachy tones. There's some blue. There's a little bit of yellow kind of into green, but the predominant color is going to be kind of either your pink, or there are some sections of it that are kind of white, because there was white in the braid. So I have more to ply. I'm going to pull that up and show you right now. Sadly, I did not divide my bobbins evenly, but you can see here I've got my 2 bobbins of singles. I'm going to finish these off, and what I'm probably going to do is finish them off, and then whatever is left on this one, because obviously you can see I have more on this one than that one, I will wind this off and try and 2-ply the rest of it. Oftentimes I do not have great luck with that, but I'm really hoping I can do it, because I really want every last inch of this yarn that I can get. It is 8 ounces of yarn. So, or 8 ounces of fiber, so I should do pretty well. I should get basically like a double skein. But BFL, I tend to spend a little bit less yardage on BFL. So my guess is I'm going to get somewhere between 600 and 800 yards. I'm hoping for closer to 800, but I'm probably going to end up closer to 6 or 650 if I just had to guess. And so we'll just have to see what that turns out like. And then I'll have to decide whether I want to knit it as a tee, and if this other yarn is going to be too crazy with it, or is just going to be fun. I kind of feel like, so I had bought these 2 skeins of, I think it's a merino silk, and I can't remember who the dyer is, but I will bring that next week. I had bought them several years ago when I was visiting Los Angeles at one of my favorite yarn stores in LA, which is the Knitting Tree LA. It wasn't there when I lived in Los Angeles, but it is owned by someone who owned a different yarn shop when I did live there, and then that yarn shop closed, and subsequently she opened a new yarn shop. So, but I love the Knitting Tree, and I always go visit when I'm in LA. And I bought 2 skeins of yarn there to knit a shawl, and ultimately never knit the shawl, I think in part because I don't wear shawls as much as I once did, and in part because this color is screaming neon, and I think I got home and thought, what was I thinking? Did I really want to do that? And I think it's actually going to be the perfect complement to this. I think this is going to tone it down a little bit, and it's also going to pick up some of the pink that's in the handspun, and so I think it's going to be amazing, and it's totally going to be my Barbie top. Anyway, so that is what I'm working on there. And again, I don't know where all this Barbie stuff is coming from, because I did not play with Barbies as a kid. I saw the movie, and to be honest, I was so-so on the movie. It had some really great parts, and it had some parts that I just kind of didn't understand why it went that direction. So I don't really understand what my fascination is, but for some reason I'm just loving this pink, and I'm just gonna go with it, and it's gonna be my Barbie sweater. So I probably have another hour or two of plying to go, and then that will be done, which means it will be time to start another spin this week. So I bought this during the tour, and unfortunately the dyer announced she's closing. So technically I bought it in her closing sale. I got a screaming deal on it, but sadly she isn't going to be dyeing anymore. So this is Classy Squid Fiber Co. And this is Rambouillet, 4 ounces, and the colorway is Godspeed. And I am not a religious person, but I thought it was kind of a nice sentiment. And also in my heart, I was thinking Godspeed to the Classy Squid Fiber Company on like all of her new adventures, because she has decided, I think, to go back to school and to kind of follow a different career path. And so I wish her the very best. And I'm just excited to spin something like this. And it's a little bit fall colors. It's got red and brown and yellow and a bit of orange, I think, where the red and yellow overlap. And I'm excited to spin this and see what it turns out as. So that is what I will be spinning this week. So I think that's all I have for you. Basically the shawl and Miles sweater are what I hope to finish this month, today being August 7th, so I have 3 more weeks, or a little bit over 3 weeks. And then the only other thing that I would fit in this month, if I could, is I did end up ordering a skein of Dream in Color Classy in a dark purple, and so I would like to knit those purple socks. So by September I have 6 pairs of socks ready to go to knit the rainbow to keep people warm during the fall season. And actually that reminds me, I need to sort through all of the things that I have knit for charity this year and start getting packages ready, because come September and October charities are going to be accepting hand knits again, and I have several places that I send hats and socks and sweaters and shawls and various other things. One of the things that I like to do is go through my knitting drawers. I have knit so many things, and go through my bins and drawers, and if I have anything that is very, very lightly worn, but I don't tend to wear it that often, I will wash it up, freshen it up, depill it, and send it off to a new home. So sometimes when I'm donating things, it's not things I've specifically knit to donate, but it's things that I've knit and I just haven't found myself wearing. I have so many knits, you know, every year I cull a few things, and sometimes they work to send them off to different homes, people in need. So, and if you are ever interested in the charities I support, just let me know. I talk about them quite a bit on here, and so just finding places to donate goods to folks in need who need a little bit of warmth and love. So I think that's it for me today. I hope that you are doing well. I hope you're feeling crafty. I hope you're enjoying either the last gasps of summer, or if your children have gone back to school, which school starts here in the next couple weeks. I'm always surprised. I grew up on the West Coast, and so we always started school after Labor Day, so I'm always surprised when schools start in August. Of course, when we started schools after Labor Day, and then we went through early June. So, you know, it's just a different calendar. And I'm very surprised that some of my friends have already stated that their kids have already gone back to school, and it's only August 7th, and that just seems crazy early to me. But I suppose if you get out towards the beginning of May, then the beginning of August is when you go back. Anyway, for those of you whose kids have gone back to school or are going back to school soon, I hope you're ready to enjoy a little bit of time to yourself, or things will get a little bit less crazy and you'll find a little bit more time for your crafty pursuits. So I will say, as I always say, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next week. Bye.